We're about to witness and enjoy a truly thrilling chess game, where the white pieces deliver a brutal and decisive punishment to the classic Alekhine defense. As you know, this is the defense where black does not move any pawns on the first move, but instead develops their knight to f6, attacking our d4 pawn right away. Of course, on this channel, we've seen this opening several times, both with white and with black. Why? Because on this channel, we don't miss a single opening. Let's see exactly how the player with the white pieces handles it, because the really good thing about this opening for white is that now we can simply keep pushing our pawn forward while attacking a knight that, poor thing, won't have a single good place to retreat to. In this specific case, the knight moves to d5, since it's clearly the best move on the board. The knight gets centralized, and of course, we just keep following the logic of the position. As always in these videos, we're going to try to learn a bunch of strategic lessons that can help us win a lot more of our games, right? When we're just starting the game, what exactly should we do? We should aim to place our pawns directly in the center whenever possible, right? Whenever it is possible, on these four squares, on these four spaces, which would be even more ideal, and then strategically develop our minor pieces, whether that means bishops or even knights first. In this game, the rules are bent a little, because after this d6, you'll see that white uses an expansion plan. Soon you'll understand why I call it that. And they don't immediately develop their minor pieces. First of all, we find ourselves in a bit of a standoff here. What does a standoff mean? Even though you can't see it very well because the knight is right in front, you see, these two pawns are threatening each other, and we should always evaluate what's happening in this standoff, and if anything happens to us if they capture us. In this case, does anything happen to us if they capture? No, we would simply recapture. So let's continue with our expansion. c4 threatens the knight, a knight that has fewer and fewer squares to retreat to. The knight moves to b6, and I'm sure that some of you, especially those who aren't so familiar with chess games, are thinking about playing c5, for example. That would be a very bad idea. Why? Because no matter how much we're attacking the knight, at some point the knight will be able to jump back to this square here, and then no one will be able to attack it effectively, right? Let's say there isn't any pawn that can attack it without any problem, so continuing to attack it further would just be a waste of time. Pay close attention to the move the player with the white pieces made here, because that's what makes this game so interesting. f4. Do you see what he's doing with the pawns? Pushing the pawns this far is very dangerous. You should only do it if you know the line exactly. Why? Because, as you can see, when we push the pawns, it's like moving all the defenders forward in soccer. What happens then? It's easier for them to score a goal on us, you see? There's a significant amount of open space here, making it quite easy for the black pieces to launch an attack. So we have to be extremely cautious and vigilant. Pawn takes pawn, and of course, we recapture with the f-pawn toward the center, because that way we'll have two strong pawns in the center instead of just one. Isn't that right? And now the black pieces play c5, immediately attacking the d4 square. Would it be a good idea to capture that pawn? Nah, it wouldn't be a good idea. Even though it seems completely free, capturing this pawn would leave us in a very bad position. For example, they could trade queens with us, and then later play knight to a4, and they're almost certain to recover this pawn very easily, either with one knight or even two. Sometimes taking a free pawn isn't the best option. So what do we do if our pawn is being threatened by two pieces? Advance, we play d5, we have a good pawn structure in the center of the board, and yes, we have a lot of space. But there's a downside. Our opponent is better developed than we are. They have a knight out, and we do not have any pieces developed yet. e6. They are threatening the d6 pawn again. Would it be a good idea to advance it? No, now it wouldn't be a good idea to advance it. Do you know why? Because, as I was saying, black could attack us very easily. For example, queen to h4 here would already be a very strong move, and stopping it with g3 would be even worse, because then queen to e4 comes and we would lose the rook. Do you see it? So it wouldn't be a good idea to push that pawn on the b file too far. What should we do then? Well, just leave this pawn alone here, for example. Play knight to c3, finally developing a piece and covering this square here. The difference is that now if they play queen to queen to h4, we can play g3 because queen to e4 isn't possible. We have the knight covering that square. Do you see the difference? So black captures the pawn. With what do we capture? with the pawn, with the queen, or with the knight. The best is with the pawn. That way we once again have two strong central pawns here, which are always better than having a lone pawn. Pay attention to black's move, c4, because this move doesn't make any sense, right? Well, yes. What they're doing is preventing this bishop from developing easily. It could only be developed to e2. Why? Because it can't go to d3 because of this pawn, nor to c4 because the pawn is defended, and obviously it can't go to b5 because bishops can't jump. So as you can see, this check was dangerous because the bishop, the pawn, is covering the c6 square, and it was quite risky. Therefore, black advances their pawn to c4, knight to f3, developing the knights first, which is something I recommend in most of our games. Start with the knights. Bishop to g4. They're doing the typical pin that we've taught you how to punish several times on the channel, right? They pin our knight. We can't move it because if we do, we lose the queen. And now, a good idea to get out of the pin is usually to move the queen aside. Why? Because bishop to e2 tends to be very passive. They place this bishop here, strong, it's true, but very, well, passive here on e2, where it can't do much except defend the knight. So it might be better, for example, to play queen to d4, which not only threatens the bishop, but also targets this c4 square. Obviously, moving the bishop away would be pretty sad. It's actually better for black in this specific case to trade the bishop for the knight. You'll soon see that this is going to turn into a fascinating and complex struggle. A lot of lines are beginning to open up across the board, and that is very true. So this game is already looking really good from a spectator's point of view. If we were the ones playing it, maybe we wouldn't like it as much. Why? Because we could get attacked from a lot of different sides. However, if we're the ones watching, studying, and finding the ideas, we can really enjoy this game a lot. You'll see how it continues. Bishop to b4. Once again, they're pinning us the same way. They're really persistent with this pin, aren't they? With this pin, does it bother us right now? No. When does a pin bother us? When they can introduce an additional attacking piece to threaten the pinned piece. For example, here it's true that they could come and threaten us with knight to a4. However, nothing would really happen if they capture this knight, because if they do, we simply recapture with the pawn, and nothing at all has happened here. So we're not worried about it. And since we're not worried, what can we do? For example, we can take back this pawn that's being attacked twice, by the queen and the bishop. Bishop takes on c4. We're not worried if they capture our bishop with the knight, because we would simply continue with queen takes. Attack the bishop, our position would be extremely good, and the opponent's king would still be in the center. That is why your opponent in this match makes the wise decision to castle well before it becomes far too late. But what is the underlying problem with that move? Logically, when the king is in the center, we want to open up lines, right? We want to push these pawns to open lines and try to attack the king. But when the king is castled, we want to attack the castling. And let's think about something. How many pieces are defending the castling? Actually, none of the minor pieces can help because they are all currently stuck on the queen side. When you see that all of the pieces are positioned on the opposite flank from the castling, that is a major warning sign for us to immediately start attacking the castling position. And how can we do that? Well, look, rook to g1. It's true, we won't be able to castle short, and we'll see if we castle long, but this rook on the g-file, which is a semi-open file because our pawn is gone, is already directly attacking the king. And if our opponent gets distracted, we're creating threats, like for example e6. Threatening checkmate with the queen and the rook. Therefore, here, wisely, the player with the black pieces decides to play g6, thus blocking the rook's line. The problem with the move g6, the problem with putting all the pawns from the castling on the same color, is that the squares of the opposite color become extremely weak. For example, the dark squares can be easily exploited with the bishop, and they will be precisely what leads to the final collapse of the position for the black pieces. You're about to see how to take advantage of this, because it's a true masterpiece. Taking advantage of the fact that the rook is supporting the g5 square, white plays bishop to g5, threatening the queen. The problem with bishop to g5, pay attention, is that the queen can move to c7, and it looks like white is in serious trouble. You probably haven't realized it yet, but once I explain it, you'll understand what's really going on. First, our bishop is being threatened by both the knight and the queen, so it's only defended by the queen, which means we either move it or defend it. But what's the problem here? Because you might be thinking, well, we just move it and that's it. That's right, but now look at what happens. It was a double attack. The first attack was on the bishop, and the second, it attacks the queen and then the rook. In other words, here a rook is going to be lost no matter what. And that's exactly what happened in the game. The player with the white pieces let it happen on purpose. The queen moves to f4 because they don't care about the rook. They want to go for the king. And even though black captures the rook, white still has a very strong position. Careful, it's still not that easy to win us. I'm sure many of you are thinking, just put the queen on f6 and then the bishop here, and this wins by itself. Now, this doesn't win because black would simply play knight to d7. The queen would have to move, everything is well defended, and we'd be down a rook. So it's not that easy to win this. Pay attention to the maneuver the player with the white pieces used. First, he put pressure with d6 on the opponent's queen. In this specific situation, the queen decided to simply retreat back to c8, attempting to sneak her way in through the white squares. Now, the player with the white pieces had two options. Either attack this bishop with king to e2, uncovering the rook, or go for a long castle and directly attack the bishop. The second option, castling long, was much better. However, white played king to e2, which has a big problem. If here, black had found the most accurate move, which was to defend the bishop by moving the queen to the c5 square, black would be significantly better because it would not be easy for white to find a checkmate, and black would have a clean extra rook as well, so black would be in a much better position overall. What happened in the game? Thanks to the fact that the player with the black pieces made a crucial mistake and moved this bishop back so it wouldn't be captured, this game went down in history, and it's a truly magnificent and beautiful game. The move is knight to e4. The knight joins in, attacking the bishop, but not only attacking the bishop. What it really wants is to get in and take advantage of all these weak squares left by the opponent's king side when they play g6. Do you remember when we placed the rook on g1? Knight b to 7. Well, knight 8 to 7, because both are on b. And now many of you might be thinking, so what now? Because the knight covers this square. For example, they could come in through here. That wouldn't be a bad idea, but maybe it's better when we have an attacking position, and especially when we're down material, to try to bring all our pieces into the fight. Which piece isn't fighting? The rook. So rook to c1 pins the bishop, which is being attacked twice. Black plays queen to c6 to try to escape with queen to b5 check. And here, pay attention to the brilliant move the player with the white pieces used, because it truly is wonderful. Rook takes bishop, sacrificing the rook. It can't be captured by the queen because we were taken. It has to be taken with the knight, and when the knight captures again, what we've done is divert the opponent's pieces toward the queen side. So it wasn't necessary to focus only on the king side, but also to attack a bit on the queen side to draw pieces over there. And now, once the queen side is out of position, we can sneak our pieces in to go after the king. Knight to f3 check, king to h8, queen to h4, threatening checkmate. First, before stopping it, this move, queen to b5 check, is played. The king has to go somewhere safe, for example to e3, where the only possible check would be queen to d3. And you can see for yourselves that the king escapes very easily and wouldn't have any kind of problem. For example, continuing with queen to d3, king to f2, and the king would escape without any problem. Therefore, there are no interesting checks here in this position. Checkmate is being threatened. The only way to stop it is h5. And here, there's only one way to win the game. Out of all the possible moves, there's only one that allows us to win the game, and that's to keep attacking without giving our opponent time to defend. And what is that move? Knight takes h5. Yes, sacrificing the knight. Obviously, this knight can't be defended, because then pawn takes, queen takes with check, the king would have to move, and then, taking advantage of the bishop's pin on the f7 square, the queen would slip into g6, taking advantage of the pin, and this would be mate in the next few moves without any problem. Therefore, logically, this knight can't be captured. So how does the game continue? Well, here they could try to give these checks, and exactly the same thing would happen. The king would escape, there would be no more checks, and mate would be inevitable. So here, in desperation, black decided to sacrifice their queen for the bishop, taking advantage of their material advantage. They gave back material by capturing this bishop in order to enter with checks on the defense. Two knights are covering very well, but with the move king to d4, both are threatened at the same time. Therefore, one of them is going to be lost. Knight to e6 check, king takes on d5. And now, as you can see, well, it's true they can capture here. Before recapturing the knight, this move was played. A discovered check, he can't block it with the knight because that would be me. The only move is king to g7, and now, yes, queen takes knight. Black tried to hold on a little longer, but look how elegantly the white player finishes the game. He brought his king into the attack. King takes on e6, and now black can't do anything. Rook to f8, the pawn wants to promote, a5, and simply knight to g4, sacrificing the queen, huh? Pay attention because there's a check with rook. The king has to move back. And now this check wins the queen. But it's not a problem because after the exchanges, the queen simply comes back to d8, and this position is, of course, completely winning. No matter how much you capture here, check, the king has to move, and you can simply capture here, or even take this pawn first, and the black piece is resigned. What did you think of that? Isn't it impressive? It is truly just as impressive as the comprehensive masterclass that Grandmaster Mauricio Flores has prepared for all of us. As you can see, look at everything he's done, huh? He's interpreted a pawn structure, which is the king's Indian, one that we can reach from many openings and turn into a winning model. They've put a bunch of videos here for you, and they're already available in Spanish and English, with lots of puzzles too, right? It's not just a video course, it's a video course with puzzles that you can try out yourselves to see if you've done everything right, isn't it? As you can see, there's all this, all of this, all of it made by a Grandmaster, right? One of the Grandmasters who understands positional chess the best out of everyone I know, Grandmaster Mauricio Flores. And he explains everything to you in the videos, super well explained. Grandmaster level concepts made accessible to everyone. You have no idea what this is, huh? It took some effort to convince Mauricio to do something like this. You know that Grandmasters are in very high demand, and even more so Grandmasters of this caliber. So if you truly want to start training seriously, I highly recommend that you take a very close look at it. I am personally asking you please to consider this, because I myself have worked very hard on this specific course, and I found it to be absolutely amazing, I assure you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you this. So you have it available right down here in the description at a super reasonable price. You know how a single lesson with a Grandmaster can cost hundreds of dollars. Just imagine this, there are more than 20 lessons. You'll see the price, but it's honestly ridiculous. You're going to love it. In fact, everyone who has joined has told me it's incredible, that you expected much less. So I'm really happy about that. And go ahead and join. It's right down here in the description. During these first few initial days, you will get an even lower special price. So if you really want to take full advantage of it, it is entirely in your hands. Hey, if you have any specific questions about the purchase, or if you have any kind of doubts at all, you can write to us and we will answer all your questions right away. I need all of you to start studying the right way, without rushing, okay? And without headaches. If you're wondering whether this will work or not, or anything else, you can write to us. We're here for whatever you need. Also, Mauricio already told me that if you have any questions about the course, if there's something you don't quite understand, or if you want something extra, he'll add it for you without any problem and at no extra cost. You have no idea how valuable this is. Friends, we're talking about a great teacher here, you know? Plus, Mauricio Flores has one of the best-selling and most sought-after books in the chess world, Chess Extractors. It's excellent. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. Please, if you haven't joined the masterclass yet, do it before the price goes up, because I promise you're going to love it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be insisting so much. And we'll see each other tomorrow, as always, in the next video, friends. Goodbye.